Tuesday, August 13th, 2019. I'd like to welcome everyone here today and call this meeting to order. This time I would ask if there's any declarations of interest. Seeing none, I will move to community announcements, and perhaps I will start with Councillor Crothers, and would you please do our character attribute of the month?
Thank you. The character attribute for the month of August is compassion. I will do whatever is necessary to heal the hurt of others. I will strive to understand and be sensitive to their feelings. I will listen to and understand the needs of others, be kind to everyone I come in contact with, take time on a regular basis to learn more about the people I work with. Quote, no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. Aesop. Thank you.
Would you like to do your community announcements as well?
This month has just been a wonderful time to live in East Gwillimbury. It's really been highlighted by many visits to the farmers market, our tapestry of taste last weekend, many business openings. We were at Mary Brown's earlier this month for the ribbon cutting there. We have great businesses moving in here, and it's just a wonderful time to be living in East Gwillimbury. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crone.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what Councillor Carruthers just said. The Tapestry of Taste was a magnificent event. I unfortunately couldn't make the Friday opening, but I was there Saturday. It was a good time. As well, we had a lot of park openings and some business openings, and so that was great. And I'd like to remind everyone that the North Union Hall has their annual corn roast this Friday, so please come on out. It's always a good time, and if you leave hungry, it's your own fault. Thank you.
Councillor Roy DeClemente.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I always look forward, I know we've had a great summer, but looking forward, on behalf of the town, and I believe a couple of my colleagues are as well, will be attending the Association of Municipalities of Ontario's conference. Starts on Sunday, so I'll be there for most of next week. And our Queensville Sharon Community Group is undertaking an exciting initiative. Tomorrow, actually, is East Gwillimbury's first ever Canadian citizenship ceremony, and it's being held at the historic Sharon Temple, which is a very fitting site, given its role in our democracy. And our community group is actually providing lunch and doing a potluck lunch and serving food to the new citizens and their guests and dignitaries. So our community is stepping up to welcome our new citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Persicini.
Good morning, everyone. Start beginning with the Open Valley Park, the second acorn ribbon cutting at Zero Home. Emergency service camp with the kids were really terrific. The mayor and I were there. The Walter Tunney Park opening, the dish of the international food was in Oslo again. I don't want to repeat myself for everything. It's been a busy time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Morton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was at the Chamber of Commerce after hours get together at the Franklin Club, and it was a wonderful occasion down there. It's a wonderful place to walk and so quiet, and so it's if anyone can ever go to visit on some of their open houses, it's a perfect time to be there. And although I wasn't able to get to Mary Brown's ribbon cutting, I was there the day before and welcomed them into East Gwillimbury, and we really sure do have to get something done about that parking lot. And as my role of council liaison for the Seniors Club, the Legion had a barbecue last Friday, and there was 14 of them in attendance, and they all seemed to have a really, really good time. They actually come to the Legion the second Friday of every month and have a good job have fun playing with all of our sports equipment and something. So it's nice to have something for the seniors to do, and they're from different parts of East Gwillimbury as well, not just the Mount Albert area. So, and as along with other members of council, I attended the opening of the Tapestry of Taste event over the weekend, and it was a wonderful opportunity for everyone to get out and listen to some great music. So that's it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Maybe a little bit of more of the same here, but I'll try to be quick. I'd like to mention the Music on the Move. I believe there's one tonight at the Ross Family Complex in Mount Albert. The one in Harvest Hills in the middle of July was good too. The music at the Civic Square events, I think August the 20th is the next one. They've been fairly well attended. Again, lots of park openings, lots of business openings. I believe the next park is Ridgeview Park on August the 22nd, I think is the next one. That's over in Holland Landing. The Tapestry of Taste was there Friday and Sunday. It sounds like the numbers were pretty good, and I'm sure that that was a learning experience for everybody to try and put that event together and then see it through. So that was a good one. I'm also looking forward to the Witness to History event this Sunday at the Temple to deal with the Ebenezer Doan family. I believe that'll be a great event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very, very busy times. We've had a terrific summer so far, and really we're just in the first part of August, so it's we still have a lot to go. Has been mentioned the music in the park, music on the move. We celebrated two park openings, and of course the festival, the Tapestry of Taste. Excuse me. Unfortunately, I could not attend. I was away at the Canadian Association of Police Governance in my role as chair of the York Regional Police Services Board. And again, thanks for bringing all these great events to our community. In addition, we welcomed several businesses, and I'll just go down here. Mary Brown's has been already mentioned. Eggcorn Net Zero Home, a very exciting initiative of new homes, and is certainly reflective of our greening strategy. I joined the youth at the Emergency Services Camp on their last day. I had the opportunity to speak with campers and heard such great things about the experience and why they attended. And I think we have a few young firefighters budding to be on our program. It's a great program delivered by Emergency Services, and thanks to staff for that. Tomorrow, the Sharon Temple is hosting their citizenship, and I believe we all are attending in that. And just a couple of our community events that are coming up this month. Farmers Market, reminder that it's from 2 to 7, Yonge and Green Lane. Tonight is the Music on the Move at the Ross Family Complex. On the 20th of August is our last music at Civic Square. August 22nd, another park opening, Ridgeview Park, and that's Kerbal Development. August 27th, an outdoor movie at the Civic Square here. It's dark enough in August to be able to watch. August 28th, an outdoor movie at Ross Family Complex, and August 29th, an outdoor movie at Harvest Hill. So busy. Thank you so much to staff for delivering such amazing programs for the summer. Thank you very much. With that, I believe that we are down to our presentation, and Mr. Clerk, Mr. Valchek, would you introduce it, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's my pleasure to introduce Laura Hanna, our Director of Communications, and Danielle Verneuil, our Communications Coordinator. And they're going to be providing us with an overview of the many things that have taken place in the first half of 2019. I think they've done a great job coordinating input from all of our departments and all of our extended management group. And they've facilitated a process and put together, I think, a bang-up product to give you an idea of the many accomplishments that have happened in a very busy first half to 2019. So with that, I'll turn it over to Laura and Danielle.
Thank you, Mark. So good morning, Madam Mayor, members of council, staff, and members of the public. As Mark mentioned, my name is Laura Hanna. I'm the Director of Communications and Customer Service with the town. And once again, Danielle Verneuil, our Communications Coordinator, will be putting on this presentation of the mid-year review for you. And as Mark mentioned, I would like to take a moment before we start into the presentation to thank all of the staff and the departments who have really provided all of this content for our presentation. And a special thank you to Danielle, who created this beautiful presentation for you to enjoy today. So to start with, we'd like to take you back a little bit and remind you about our conversations about the 2019 to 2022 strategic priorities. As part of our planning process, we committed to you, Council, that we would bring back mid-year reports, a midterm report, and an end of term report. So this is just the first benchmark of the first half of the first year of your term to let you know how things are going. And let me tell you, quite a bit is happening, which we'll walk through shortly. Throughout the presentation today, you're going to see color-coded check marks. So similar to the ones on the top of the screen here. Those color codes just correspond to the strategic priorities that were established by you at the beginning of the term. So let's get started. To start with, we're going to look at the dollars and cents. This slide represents the annual approved budget for 2019, which is just over $45 million. If you look at the blue portion here, which obviously takes up just over half of our budget, that's the day-to-day operating expenses, so just making sure that the town runs smoothly. At mid-year, we're forecasting a modest surplus, and we've also met the approximately $200,000 in transitional cost reductions that were required for the budgeting this year. For the 2020 budget, we are expecting there may be some budget pressures related to the development fee revenue, so we are actually undertaking a fee review at this time. This slide here focuses on the capital portion of the budget. And so for those who may not be familiar with what the capital portion of the budget is, those are typically one-time major or annual major projects and initiatives. These would be things such as road maintenance, which occurs annually in key locations around town and is happening right now. Our park redevelopment projects. So for 2019, that would be the Queensville Park and the Mount Albert Community Center Park redevelopment. It's also key pieces of equipment that we have. So for example, our aerial truck that emergency services delivered and retained last week and will begin training on shortly, as well as our large wheeled loader, which the CIES department will take ownership of in September. So those are just a few of the major expenditures that you'll see in 2019, not to include the major facility expenditures, which we'll touch on in the Community Parks and Recreation Culture department in a second. So for the remainder of the presentation, what we're going to do is walk you through each of the departments and just some of the major projects that have gone on so far this year. To start with, our Community Parks, Recreation and Culture, CPRC department, they've had a very exciting few years in this area. To start with, so 9 park and trail openings in 2018, and then already opened another 4 parks this year, with a 5th park opening planned for August 22nd at Ridgeview Park. So each of these parks was developed and had an official opening, which was really a community barbecue. And that was a chance to bring out local residents, meet the community, and have everybody come out to enjoy the opening of these facilities. And quite a few other accomplishments. I want to draw your attention to the top photo here. So using our strategic priorities as a guide, our staff took the initiative to bring the community together in a really unique atmosphere for a once-in-a-lifetime experience to cheer on the Raptors as part of the NBA Finals. So we had over 2,000 residents in attendance at this very impromptu event, which was very exciting, and I'm sure that it'll be a memory that'll stick with many of our residents for years to come. 2019 is also the final year of our Emerald Ash Borer program. This program began back in 2013 with a tree inventory, and it's already replaced actually over 700 trees in our community. And there's a photo there of some of the trees that have been replaced. As already mentioned, this past weekend, the town also successfully hosted our Tapestry of Taste event. Many residents were in attendance, and I know that our CPRC department would really like to thank all of the departments that helped make this event such a success. A special recognition I know goes to Rhonda and Ali and Danielle, who have basically lived Tapestry of Taste, event planning, and advertising for the last few months. And I know there are many other departments who have been a huge help in the success of this event. So our finance team, our fire inspections team, our road crew, and the entire CPRC team who spent the entire weekend working that event. So a really great success and team collaboration. And not to be outdone by the events and programs portion of their department, the facilities area has also been extremely busy this year. We've entered phase 2 of the operations center, which means that work has begun. Our general contractor has mobilized. They've put out stakes for the foundation. They've begun the excavation of the structural footings, and they've begun work on the parking lot. We're also tracking on budget and on schedule so that in early 2021, we can take occupancy. Staff are also undertaking one of our most comprehensive public outreaches to date to gather feedback from the community for the design of the Health and Active Living Plaza, and that's going to continue into the fall. I don't want these two larger scale projects to overshadow some of the other work that's also going on in this area. They've recently opened the annex across the street here with 15 employees working out of that facility, and the official opening of the Smart Flower out back, which is a really great visual reminder of Council's commitment to green technology and sustainability. So moving on to our CIES department, they've had many great projects underway in 2019 as well. Many of our residents have participated in the master planning process for our water and wastewater and transportation master plans. So those are approximately 90% complete now, and staff will actually be holding a council workshop in the fall to receive approval to file that. This term, one of town's strategic priorities is the advancement of the 404 employment lands and the servicing strategy for those secondary plans. These are being completed concurrently, and we're actually looking at an interim servicing strategy to support a new proposed employer in the area. Another major project is our annual construction projects, which includes our asphalt resurfacing program, which I mentioned earlier under the capital projects. So that's underway, and that project actually totals just about $1.2 million. So it's a big undertaking for our municipality. We've also talked about our multi-year water replacement program many times. This program began in 2017, and it will be completed in early 2021. And to date, we've replaced over 2,600 water meters in the communities of Queensville, Mount Albert, and Holland Landing. If we move to the Development Services Department, it's really been a transformational year in that area. With a complete rebuild of the management team, we're also moving forward with many important projects in this area. Items such as the new and enhanced building bylaw, which was approved by Council in the spring. So residential building has slowed down in EG. However, the builders had targeted about 420 homes for 2019, and we are on target for that number. And then we're looking at a bit of a slowdown maybe in 2020, and the builders are targeting approximately 350 homes for 2020. Right now, the planning department is focusing on moving forward the 404 secondary plan, which will encourage the future employment in that area as part of our comprehensive growth management plan. They're also working with the finance department to monitor Bill 108 and what that brings in the fall. Now I'll pass it over to Danielle, who will take you through the remainder of the departments.
Thank you, Laura. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to continue with the Emergency and Community Safety Services Department. ECSS continues to focus on the first three lines of defense. One of the key focuses is always educating the public and our residents about fire and life safety. The team continues to expand their programs, which include a variety of events such as Beat the Heat, their Emergency Services Camp, Emergency Preparedness Week, and an accessory apartment workshop for realtors, which was in partnership with the Georgina Fire Department to educate realtors on code requirements and fire safety tips. Staff from all the departments participated in the training leading up to the annual exercise in conjunction with York Region, which serves as a compliance item. ECSS has also focused on company officer development, where full-time captains participated in the advanced courses for fire inspector training. Our bylaw team is continuing its positive ticketing program, where municipal law enforcement officers acknowledge youth and adults in our community, demonstrating positive behavior with a free skate at the sports complex. Moving on to corporate services, the finance department has had a very busy year. Once again, we completed our in-house development charge review, which was passed with no appeals. As a result of Bill 108, we expect that we will be required to do another DC update to comply with the new legislation. New this year, finance staff have also focused on creating a resident-focused year-end audit document, which helps put the town's financial position into a more resident-focused document, keeping aligned with our strategic alignment for communication. As we continue to grow, there is also a focus on ensuring that we assist our residents in efficient and effective manners. As such, the finance and customer service area are investigating options for self-serve and enhanced technologies, which you will see more about in the next several months. This is something we are truly excited about and we think our residents will love. As we move through the 2019 to 2022 term of council, we know that increasing communication and engagement with our residents will be a #1 priority. I'm a proud member of the town's communication and customer service team, who I can say personally works to ensure these priorities are upheld each and every day. This year so far, we have spearheaded a community open house, worked with departments to help share their information, and continue to strive to do things a little bit different, but a whole lot better. We are also working on the back end of many exciting initiatives which will come forward in the next few months, such as kicking off the work on a new town website. The joke we always share in IT is if we don't see them, then they must be doing their job well. This remains true for 2019, but I can tell you that behind the scenes, there is a lot of work going on. As we continue to grow, there is a need for us to ensure we have the right information at the right time. There are many internal processes and needs analysis being done to ensure that over this term of council, we move forward with streamlined technology and the proper tools to allow us to do our jobs more effectively. We also continue to see recognition for this hard work with 2 new awards for the development dashboard that this team has developed. Stay tuned for a couple of other exciting dashboards, which will be coming later this term. As for our economic development department, this has become a renewed interest of council, and the first half of 2019 was a focus on 2 main priorities. Firstly, that our business program was working effectively, and the strategic recruitment of a new ECDev manager. Margot Begin will join us in September from the private sector with a great deal of experience in the ECDev world. Also working with her while Amy focuses on her wonderful work in HR is Brittany and AJ from our customer service team. This marks the 4th secondment from the CS team to other areas of the town over the last year. A lot of exciting projects and partnerships have also taken place in legal and counsel support services in 2019. They kicked off the year by acquiring cyber liability insurance in January, which provides coverage for the town in the event of a cyber breach. LCSS will be assisting our IT department to develop a cyber breach response team and provide staff training to increase awareness of frequent cyber issues. The development of the town's cannabis bylaws and policies was another key initiative out of the LCSS area. Staff work with their regional counterparts and ECSS to develop EG's cannabis policies and bylaws. As we move forward, both LCSS and ECSS will continue to develop and monitor cannabis legislation to ensure we continue to make informed decisions. Our clerk's team has been busy working on exciting projects both inside and outside of the council chambers this year. They've created new committees during this term of council, including the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee, Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Queensville Sharon Working Group, and Broadband Working Group, to name a few. You may have seen some of these groups out and about in our community at town events and park openings. The clerk's team has also completed a records management needs assessment review and is currently undertaking a review of recommended municipal best practices, so stay tuned for details in Q4 of 2019. The endorsement of the town's Diversity and Inclusion Charter is a major accomplishment for both EG and the region. We signed the charter in spring during our community open house, and it was just the beginning of us celebrating diversity and inclusion in our community. This past June, we raised the Pride flag to celebrate Pride Week at the Civic Center. To ensure we're maintaining our employee-recommended workplace culture, we've developed a staff survey follow-up team to roll out feedback from our staff survey. The team is made up of representatives from each department and meets regularly to discuss new ideas, initiatives, team building opportunities, and staff appreciation events. Our HR team is also working to ensure training and development is aligned with best practices by updating policies and collaborating with our N6 partners on development opportunities. Much like our growing community, this slide represents an interesting analysis of our corporate demographics over the past 5 years and how we've changed. It is important to recognize this change in our workplace and provide our leadership team with resources and training such as the N6 calendar and Harvard online learning tool to effectively lead the new generation into the EG workforce. As indicated on the slide, we've hired a diverse staff team that reflects our changing community and speaks a wide variety of languages. HR continues to utilize the Shamrock model when hiring staff to ensure just-in-time hiring and effective use of resources. Our EG Public Library has been busy over the past 7 months with increased traffic to their virtual branch and a high demand for their loanable technology programs. They've added items such as webcams, tablets, DVD players, which includes hotspots, GoPros, Chromebooks, and sewing machines. The library is selecting technology that is often purchased for one-time or occasional use and ensures all community members have access to technology that enables them to develop skills to participate in our modern society. This summer, the library also held story times in French and is planning to launch its first adult multilingual collection at the Hollow Landing branch in the fall. They've also planned a children's multilingual collection for 2020. The annual TD Summer Reading Club has had its highest participation rate to date, with over 5,800 books read so far this summer. Reading over the summer is important for children to retain their learnings from school and prevents the summer slide prior to beginning school in September. The library is continuing to respond to the needs for more flexible and accessible spaces. They have been serving our community in preparation for the renovation of the Mount Albert branch, which is slated to begin for December 2019. And of course, it wouldn't be a library update without mention of the top requested books, as you can see on the bottom right of the screen. Those books are Dark Sacred Night by Michael Connolly for adults and Underwear by Jen Harney for children. That concludes our mid-year review presentation, and our GMs are available to answer questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very exciting. It's hard to believe it's 6 months have passed already, and I wasn't counting, but I know that there were many, many tick marks up in the corners on each one of the slides. Members of committee, any questions of staff or department heads at this time? I think that's go ahead.
Madam Mayor, just I wish to thank Laura and Danielle again, and I just want to point out that Danielle mentioned a new annual financial report that had been produced, and I just want to hold it up. Each of you has been provided with it. This will be available on our website. I want to pay a special thanks to our finance team and in help with our coordination through communications to put this document together, which really takes the year-end audit and then puts a lot of context and other information together. So I hope you'll find it informative and useful, and hopefully members of the public as well. So I just wanted to thank the folks again and just draw your attention to this as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you to staff. And I know while our two ladies put it together that you had a lot of help from behind the scenes in all the departments. So thank you. I think this new publication as well for finance, it makes it a lot easier to read and understand. Many people understand finance, many don't, and it makes it very to understand very easy. And I'm sure that we'll get some good comments on that as well. Thank you for all that you do. With that, could I have a motion to receive, please? Councillor Crone. All those in favor? And that's carried. We are now at item E, and that's deputations. We have a number of deputations today. I believe that they are all for the same topic, and so I will just give a couple of comments before we get started. We have the deputants have 5 minutes. And with the number of deputants that we have today, I'm going to be very tight on the 5 minutes. At 4 minutes and a half, I will give a high sign, and at 5 minutes, you need to be concluded. I would ask that because most of all of the deputants are speaking on the same topic, if in fact your points have been made by someone else in advance, then please let us know, and we'll pass you by and have other people speak as well. I have always spoken about the importance of courtesy and respect in the council chambers, and thank you to Councillor Crothers earlier in our meeting. We do live by the character attributes that you see around the room here, and in particularly we want to respect everyone in the room here, and I would ask that those that are presenting today would also follow the same lead. With that, Mr. Clerk, I'm wondering if you have any comments before we begin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Certainly, You are correct. We have a list of 7 deputants on the revised agenda, and to advise council, we did receive an additional deputation request by a D. Caro, again, with regards to the same item, L1. And just like to also highlight that one deputant, Ms. Varvaro, has 4 requests submitted, all from the same residents. Certainly ask the deputant to, if there are 4 separate topics and new topics, that certainly is acceptable. But as you had indicated, Madam Mayor, certainly new points are critical to the discussions today. Also like to remind council that as per your procedural bylaw, you talked about the 5-minute limit, but it also says that if there's a group of people wishing to address council or committee with respect to a particular position on a particular issue, then council or committee may determine that the group shall be represented by 1 person, or that the time limit shall be other than stated above. So that is as per your procedural bylaw. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. So if there are people here that are representing others, and some of those people will refrain from taking the podium, we'll act accordingly with that as well. So with that, Mr. Clerk, would you introduce our first deputant, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Your first deputant is Jay Gamble. Again, with regards to item L1, Development Services Planning Report 2019-31, updates on comprehensive zoning bylaw.
Good morning, Mr. Gamble.
Good
to
morning.
have you with us.
Madam Mayor, councilor members, staff. We've been here before. Unfortunately, the 5-minute rule basically stuffs us down. We can't say a great deal in 5 minutes, but I'll try and cover the highlights. We've put in a number of documents that you have received. Assuming we have the time, I would like to refer to those. I returned the bylaw with an annotated description on a number of items. Anyway, while we recognize the town has no control over the Conservation Authority, to the contrary, the town is in non-compliance with current regulations. However, it is our contention that these regulations are not consistent with the Conservation Authority's mandate. In fact, we believe they've been grievously exceeded. Russ Robson will expand on that, so I'll just let him take care of that. I do believe that the only way the town, being underneath the region and must be compliant with them, supposedly, I believe the only way that we can send our problem to them is to say no. If we remain compliant, non-compliant, and numerous other associations towns do the same thing, we will effectively send a message saying no. We're not counteracting your authority, but you have a problem. We have to address the problem. At the July council meeting following numerous deputations, every councillor spoke of the need to be informed of the implications of the Conservation Authority's demands. Read the zoning bylaw. Subsequently, it was decided that a public consultation/information meeting would be held September 11th. Representative of the Conservation Authority would be invited to attend. In the Thursday, August 8th edition of the East Gwillimbury Express, an announcement read that 100 acres of public land would become EP zoned, and there would be 4 additional schedules added to the bylaw. No mention was made of the implication that accepting these schedules would result in the loss of the town's authority over land use. Nor was there any mention of the landowner's rights being arbitrarily compromised. In a memo dated August 13th, Laura Hanna states that updates would be available for public review beginning August 8th. This will be reviewed by council for adoption at the September 4th meeting. Unless I completely misunderstand, the proposal is to adopt the change bylaw prior to the September 11th workshop. This would appear to be putting the horse before the cart. While staff may be of the opinion the matter has been successfully concluded, the landowner's concerns remain. As to the CA's agreement to withdraw the repeal if the modified bylaw is passed, this is not a gift nor a compromise. As long as they alone control the designation by way of 7 different environmental layers. They rule. Simply put, any restrictions on private property is unacceptable. Accepting the CA's constantly and arbitrarily changing maps is nothing more than an end run. If I would bring council's attention to the latest map we have, which covers an area, strangely enough, where Mr. Robson lives. I believe this was submitted to council. It is odd to note that the boundaries have all of a sudden changed. While they skip over 9 or 10 lots, suddenly the zoning comes right down into Mr. Robson's backyard. The elevation of his property is no different than his person next door. None whatsoever. I won't go into any, I'm just going to state that as a fact. You may draw whatever conclusions you wish to from that. Basically, I believe we're asking the town to remain non-compliant. Without exception. We must send a message that we do not agree. Just because a higher level of government says this is what we're going to do does not mean that we remove the right to complain about it. Council has been excellent in this regard and has remained that way. And may I encourage them to stay precisely that way. How am I doing on time? Probably
You have about 30 seconds.
Okay, well, obviously we're not going to get to the annotated bylaw. I did make many points in that bylaw, stating some inconsistencies, some issues we've had. 30 seconds, I can't possibly go into them. Councillors, you have those. I trust that you have read them and will take into consideration what they say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gamble. And I can assure you that every member of council does have all the paperwork that has been submitted. And I, like the remainder of my colleagues, have spent several hours going over the paperwork. So while you only had 5 minutes to present, we are well aware of the information that you've provided. So, and thank you very much for doing that. It was very helpful.
Will that be on record then? That basically my problem is that if an individual item is not brought up in this meeting, there's no record of it to the public.
It may very well be brought up at this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Webster.
With respect to Mr. Gamble's annotated bylaw revisions, I would suggest it might be useful for him to sit down with staff that have written the bylaw and go through his proposed changes. I think that just a conversation like that is something that's very intent why the draft bylaw is before council today.
Thank you very much. And you've reminded me to remind all of those people in the audience, whether you make a deputation or not, our staff are available at any time to meet with you, to go through the number of concerns that you have and try to understand your concerns and hopefully to let you know what we're doing at our end to correct those. Thank you.
Thank you. Your next deputant is R. Robson. Mr. Robson's also submitted a video that he wished to play during his deputation. That video is just shy of 2 minutes, so that will be part of his 5-minute speaking. Mr. Robson can advise whether he wants it shown before or after.
Good to have you with us today.
Thank you very much, Council and Madam Mayor. Yes, I was hoping that you guys did receive the video I submitted to all of you. I believe I sent an email with a link to YouTube. So basically, I would just like to be here today. I apologize for my appearance. I didn't have very much time today to get ready for the meeting due to my life. So anyways, basically, I'd like to point out that the provincial policy statement is headed back to be reviewed by Minister of Municipal Affairs, Steve Clark. That in that video, David Piscini, MPP for Northumberland and Peterborough South, states that and advises all municipal councils and staff to defer any decisions and table any decisions until such time that that review is made. Having said that, I would like to play the video now and have it recorded into the minutes of the meeting, if possible. Having said that, I would like to play the video now and have it twice.
Thanks very much, Lord, and it's great to be here this evening. Thank you all for attending. I've got to say, I was at the meeting in Kendall, and since being elected in last June's election, I've not attended anything. We've got flooding along Lake Ontario, a number of issues in this province that drew as much attention and interest from constituents as that meeting in Kendall. And our jobs as politicians at any level is to represent you, the people. You're our boss. And I'm pleased to say that since last meeting, Minister Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, met with both MPP Lindsay Park and myself. Now, I'd like to send regrets on behalf of MPP Park. She can't be here this evening. She's doing family law consultations in Ottawa, I believe it is right now. Kingston, sorry. But I'm here tonight. I also see Philip Lawrence out in the crowd. Philip Lawrence is our Conservative Canada at the federal level. Thanks for taking interest in this bill. We met with Minister Clark, and last Monday in Niagara, he announced that the provincial government of Ontario is reviewing the provincial policy statement. So that's great news for us here in Clarington. So as someone who represents you, the people, I think it's clear, and I would encourage my colleagues at the municipal level and at all levels, that any movement to move forward on EP zoning would be irresponsible. And I would encourage all of you and our friends at the municipal level to provide feedback. We've opened consultation, and this is where I need all of you. I'm here tonight, I need you. I need you to write in. It's going to be on the website. You can contact my office. I need you to write in to Minister Clark's office. I need you to provide feedback. Many of you have come into my office. Many of you have written to me. We need your voice. It's time to stand up loud and clear. That policies passed, virtually by the previous provincial government, are not conducive to positive economic growth, aren't conducive to your needs, and frankly, that don't respect landowners. So we're reviewing that provincial policy statement. I'd ask you all to provide your feedback. I would respectfully ask that at the municipal level we put a complete halt on this until that provincial review is done. And then, and only then, do I think we could move forward with some consensus. So thank you for having me tonight. I apologize. I've got another meeting on flooding on the shorelines that I have to get back to.
I think that would do there. The main points of that the speech are, as you heard loud and clearly, we should wait for any decisions on amending the bylaw. Also, I have gained over 800 signatures from citizens that would like the Conservation Authority to drop its appeal. I think with now the knowledge of the provincial policy statement, the PPS going back for review, I think the Conservation Board should feel that it did its job, and now it should be relieved to drop the appeal, and should, I believe, 1,000 acres of publicly owned land to be EP'd should be enough for them to rethink their appeal process. Any mapping that includes buffer zones, wetlands, provincially significant lands, floodplains, green belt, oak ridges, moraine, conservation plan, regional woodlands, or any other natural features delegated by an authority above or below the municipality is liable to change due to Bill 108, the provincial policy statement, and modernizing the Conservation Authority's operations. So those are three big things that are coming up. Yeah, I think we have all the cards in favor for the town now. So I would also like to request council acknowledge that it was myself and my volunteers who organized and put on the public meeting that took place on June 24th, 2019. It was mostly attended by landowners that I have been representing throughout the LPAP process as party status members, and already had knowledge of the appeal and EP designation of their lands. For the planning department and staff to project any notion to council that they had properly informed and gained support of landowners in that meeting is a little misleading. I have I had a lot of emails and phone calls after that meeting in regards to Section 1.4, the change to other land use controls from enforcement. There was a lot of confusion there, a lot of misunderstanding, and obviously we haven't done a good job in informing, educating.
Could you
the public.
wrap up, please?
I could, yep. Basically, that's what I had to say. I do represent a large number of people. I do have over 800 signatures, and I would suggest that council hears my statement and it was entered into the records of this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Robson. Any comments on any of the information from staff at this point?
I defer to council, but I did have one question for Mr. Robson that I wouldn't mind, not to get into a debate by any means, but if I'll let the council first ask.
No, go ahead, Mr. Webster. Any information that we don't have that we can get, then that's most important for our decision making.
As staff, we're very cognizant of many reviews being undertaken by the province right now, including a regional governance review, and we await some stuff. With regard to the provincial policy statement, as you mentioned, the economic development, affordable housing, I'm sure will be our key tenets. What would you hope would happen as a result?
A review of the official plan. So the official plan in itself did not respect private landowners. As you can see, there's a lot of landowners coming to you guys and saying that. So we would hope that the official plan would be reviewed and we'd have more power. Our town would have more power over our official plans and be able to, that's what Clarington and many other municipalities are coming to right now. You guys aren't alone in this. I've been in contact with a lot of MPPs and there is a lot of people behind this. So it should be good news for everybody.
Fact of the matter is, when we do respond today, is 70% of our lands are protected by Greenbelt legislation.
Yes.
And that is a very significant restriction or encumbrance that's been in place since 2005. And at this point, no government has been prepared to take a look at that. So I take it that would be one of the areas you think might be looked at?
Well, I do believe that's one of the areas is additional to the Greenbelt was the additional of these mappings that you are going to look at today. Those are additional onto exceeding Greenbelt Act. So I believe that, yes, those things will be reviewed. Like I said, from what I've heard, it's been positive feedback. Steve Clark is aware of it. Mr. Doug Ford is aware of these matters, and there seems to be an overall understanding that there might be a little bit more protection for private landowners in the coming future, and I think it's something we should all pay attention to.
Thank you very much. Councillor Crone.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Lamanna, our clerk. Our deputant mentioned that he had a petition. Being the new guy on the council, what is our mechanism and process for accepting petitions? Because if there are people that are upset about something and would like to file the petition, I think we should. I would hope we have a mechanism for that to happen. I know provincially and federally we do. There's a process and a format that the petitions have to conform to, but just asking as the new guy. I'm going to get away with this new guy routine for about another 4 months. So I'm going to milk it.
We'll note that. Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Certainly our procedural bylaw doesn't speak to submissions of petitions. The Municipal Act doesn't necessarily speak to petitions other than a couple spots that refer to electoral review in terms of formal submissions of petitions. Other procedural bylaws, as we've been conducting a best practice review for our own purposes, there is sections of petitions, and it's just simply the fact that residents groups can submit petitions. They must be in writing, and all signatories to that petition must be eligible and have some form of contact information. With regards to privacy legislations, we don't post the full petitions. Obviously, with regards, we do redact the personal private information, but we typically indicate that there's X number of residents signing a petition. The petition, in past, we've received petitions. Typically, it comes with, a couple paragraphs outlining what the petitioners are speaking to and signing to. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So if someone wanted to submit a petition, they would register it with you?
Correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Could you introduce the next deputant, please?
Thank you. Your next deputant, as per the agenda, is A. Varvaro, and we were handed a authorization to speak on behalf of Mr. Varvaro to Ms. Varvaro. And as indicated earlier, there are 4 requests from Varvaro household. So perhaps if you want to listen to those at this time, Madam Mayor.
We would put them together, but I would ask you if it's already been suggested by other speakers or that it is repetitive, then you could perhaps shorten your presentation.
Yes, I will. They have been all written and together. I say together, but with that in mind, bearing that in mind, obviously there are things said today I was unaware of. So if I do start to pass over, please do be my guest to let me know if I've. This is a very complex issue. I don't want to be redundant. Certainly, that has not been our purpose. It is our purpose to share our very individual and unique concerns on the matter.
And I certainly will let you know. I will let you know before your time is up, well in advance, so you can sum up. Should you be at that stage in our deputation?
I thank you for your time. And I would like to thank, first off, on behalf of all of us, not just my husband, Angelo Varvaro, for the staff, to the council. This has been a lot of hard work. It's been a lot of time. I do believe that everybody has tried to do the due diligence to do their best for the town and its people and its residents. And so it's with that hope and that understanding that I come here today. So I hope that what is said is taken in that light. My husband has said, he has worked very hard, as most of us have, to care, to purchase a property. This is something that not everybody has the ability to do. We feel very blessed, and he's tries his best to be a good steward of the land, to remove trees when they need to come down. And like most Canadians, his home is the biggest single financial investment. Most of us are busy, like him. Today, unfortunately, he has projects at work and he cannot be here at 10 a.m. It's an important decision being made today that they are asking to pass. He wants to know why, when this is one of the single biggest investments for great money at East Gwillimbury Landowners, is this taking place at 10 a.m. of a workday with little notice in the paper that is clear and obvious. How did you expect anybody to know that you have on the agenda of passing this bylaw? It was so unclear to my wife that when she looked at the paper, she ignored it until she received a call telling her to go look at the agenda online. She was shocked. She had read the paper, so how did she miss it? Nothing in it told her the public vote was being held or a decision to be rendered. The public expects to be explicitly told directly. You do that for when we've gone through the other process for this bylaw. Those notices were appropriately put. He would have expected as much. Surely your IT department can tell you how many people actually, he is an IT guy, so you'll forgive this, each week look at the agenda and agenda package. You must have an idea how many people that could have possibly been. How is it that that is where that was placed for the passing of this bylaw that you have under review? Is this transparency? Is it just an error in judgment? He sat in this room, he listened to you at the last council meeting, and to all the deputants, the staff, and the council, it sounded clear to him. You gave everybody watching and listening the impression that you were going to make a decision, but that was going to be put on hold indefinitely. He was very proud of council's behavior. Staff Council Horner told us no definitive date was set to get back to the LPAT with our progress. CAO Webster said we are one of the few councils that actually meets in the summer. That is his quote. You recommended a dedicated workshop, interactive open house to invite the LSRCA and the public in late September or September 11th to unravel, as he put it, tasks, not bundle them. Virginia Haxon, you soundly stated, it certainly makes sense to me that that's where we want to start. That's the ultimate of what we want, so perhaps we start there. You continued that this may not be the end of where we're at, but once again, it is very, very difficult to get the information out to everyone that's involved. And when you take a look back at that map that we had up here referring to the land planning schedules, that with our entire municipality, there is not many people in East Gwillimbury that are not touched in one way, shape, or form with those regulations. Every piece of property has something attached to it in one way or another. So it is going to be a big job to make sure that the message gets out there, but it is certainly not impossible to get it out there, and we'll make it happen. That was your promise to us. Both Councillor Scott Crone and CAO Webster said that they recommended that council ultimately go back and ask LSCRCA to drop their appeal. Mr. Lamanna proposed a resolution made by Councillor Morton. Councillor DeClementi asked staff for an August meeting, and that for a week or two ahead of time, a more complete report be made that the public can access to clarify and address some of the misinformation before we get to that meeting. You carried that motion unanimously. What other impression does staff and council think that the public had? We have had neighbors and friends ask us, what is going on? Why? Who is behind this? Who is pushing this? So I have to ask you, because I don't know. I don't have an answer. He doesn't have an answer. Who is pushing this? Where is the fire? It is absolutely free to us to wait. What do you want to tell them? I ask you tell them today. They are listening to you. You promised them an interactive information meeting with all involved and to hear their comments. Just a start of many. Your actions speak louder than words. Be true to your word. Put this on hold. Demonstrate with clear action that you are trustworthy, transparent, and honest, and that you work with integrity. Honor your word. Both staff and council follow up on your suggestion. It was an excellent one. I ask today that you pass a motion to put this on hold with a set date for review after a series of public consultations, education meetings. That's the meeting take the format previously recommended by both staff and council, that LSRCA be invited in residence to have presentations from staff, LSRCA, a few residents, and then to take short comments. You could also do as you did to put a note in the local paper that you were looking for comments and put a cutoff date. Perhaps sometime in late fall to receive those comments. Once again, to ask staff to draft and prepare a report that is available both to council and the public at least a week or two before. And at that time, you could also take a look at where the other two reviews that have been mentioned sit, the PPS and the CA. At that point, at that next meeting, we can see and review, are we closer, or perhaps add a decision? And at that time, set next steps to be taken. For the record, I'm in agreement with all the deputations heard here today. Thank you for your time. I hope I stayed well within my 5 minutes for him.
You were just over, but I thought you were going into the next request that you had. So
no.
I'll work on that one. It might be a little less the next one. I will. If you're going to do the three in a row, or I can have a resident come up and you, because you're not in the same order as listed on our agenda. While you're there, you might as well continue.
Would you rather I just, yeah, okay, that's fine.
So I
just have a quick sip of water. I get very dry throat.
I will hold you tight to your 5 minutes. Unless, of course, you want, the next one is yourself as a resident, and then I'm not sure about the next two.
Mrs. Cusack, P. Cusack, cannot be in attendance today. I did not get a signed letter from her, but I do mention her in my presentation. She is unfortunately away on a scout camping trip.
Thank you. Right now, I'm going to bypass her request number 4 and go to yours, which is number 5, and we'll deal with hers after we
Yes, I
finish
know she
with
was
yours.
trying, she had very little time. She found out she had very little time. She found out half an hour before she had to be, she's obviously taking children to a scout outing. So it was
Please
rather
proceed.
difficult.
Please
Oh, sorry, is
proceed.
this part of my, oh, okay, sorry, I didn't know.
Yes.
Okay, so I will state that I'm in agreement as well, in particular to stress not taking any action until the PPC and CA Act are reviewed. I have reached out to Steve Clark, the MPP, to provide clarity to myself and to the town and share specifics of how this changes would be relate to our matter. Here are a few CA Act review items for your consideration and for the public's consideration. That one of the things they're looking at is exempting low-risk development activities from requiring a permit, requiring conservation authorities to have publicly available policies that guide permitting decisions, requiring conservation authorities to provide public notice of new regulated areas, mapping and decisions, which they don't currently do, so we don't have to know when they do them. They can just do them blindly. CA is required to establish, monitor, and report on service delivery standards, including timelines for permit decisions. Why wouldn't you wait for this to happen? To ensure landowners are treated fairly, transparently, that they not build, for example, perhaps in a less desirable location, when in a few months, maybe they could get permission for that area. Behave responsibly right now. Staff comments indicated that these maps, 4.1, are nothing more than public service announcement. At the last meeting, upon reviewing the tapes, no comment was directly made regarding how the adding of the LSRCA floodplain would affect residents with the inclusion of 4.1. How will it affect residents? In the Development Services Report, the section on alignment to strategic plan, it's vague, offering only general broad overview statements. The consequences to property owners was not addressed directly at the last council meeting. How will it impact property owners and their land rights? I asked that the following question be answered and the answer be made publicly available in writing prior to any decision or deliberation on the passing of these amendments. I recommend council pass a motion prior to any deliberations that the PPS and CA are settled, that perhaps we need to get outside advice, because obviously there's a lot of confusion out there. Maybe we need an independent party to come and help us look at this. Staff's opinion in the Developmental Services Report P2, that was put out today, P219, I can't even speak numbers, sorry, is that no further consultation is needed or notice required. I haven't had the opportunity to speak directly with staff, as they are well aware we've had a family member with a health crisis. I've been in and out of town. We were also led to believe that there'd be lots more time. I didn't think I was under time pressure. I thought I had until September 11th and well beyond. It took about 1 month for me to get a reply from one office to get the answers I need to even begin to formulate or have it make any decision. I asked in multiple emails for information, each time getting a little bit more and more. How have you given me time? How have you given Pauline Kuzak and her family time? I have never during this entire process heard or met with the LSRCA other than at the LPAD. We were the only group they asked to have party status denied. They have not attended public meetings, made any presentation, offered to meet with residents, nor so much as sent in a deputation to be read so we could understand throughout the process or negotiate with them. Pauline, who's been working on this, has reached out to them. Unfortunately, to the best of my knowledge, she hasn't heard back from them. On her voice on her behalf her displeasure and frustration with this. Her goal in mind is to see laws that reflect the true betterment for the environment and ones that do not unnecessarily vex landowners. There would appear to be negligible financial cost in holding a few public consultations. Staff are salaried, time input would be minimal. Putting a decision on hold has zero cost. It is free to taxpayers. This report states overall uncertainty reduced. How is that beneficial? What is the fear or concern? Most action in haste ends in a poor result. As they say, hurry slowly. This is an opportunity to engage with the public and to earn their support, gain ideas and insights. Drafting sound laws is an art. Any master craftsman knows this takes time, patience, repetition. You work over and over so you get it right because it is worth it. That is what you attempted to do with this bylaw, and I respect you, Mrs. Mayor, for that. Your vision comes to light, and it lives on well beyond. We have said at the LPAT that the mapping is flawed. We have concerns regarding their lack of transparency. When I met with Mr. Horner, he had no concern that we could oversee this. What does it matter if there's...
Please conclude.
Okay. Mr. Robson has over 700 petitioners. The council is mandated to uphold their code of conduct, to be true to their word. They must concern themselves with behaving in a transparent manner. If you put this on hold, you stay true to your word. I ask that you do so. People are watching, and this affects a great many landowners. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Now you have another request.
Just a request for his 30-second glasses. I lose my voice. I get dysphonia, I'm sorry. On behalf of my daughter, who is sitting here, I've come to speak Isabella Varvaro. Isabella is 24 years old. We moved to Mount Albert so that she could live in a small community with people who know, recognize her, and where she could feel safe and have a home that functions for her. It took her several years to find a home that could be renovated. It is very difficult to find accessible housing. We have put a lot of effort into designing and paying for accessible design to improve it upon this home. We also purchased the home for her with the notion that this home had great many potentials, many of which conservation sought to destroy. They sought to destroy agricultural use. They sought to destroy bed and breakfast, running businesses. My husband and I both run businesses. This provides income for her. It goes on and on. Actually, your bylaw is illegal. It is illegal to zone group homes. It has been overturned in 3 municipalities. This is not our only. This is one of our great concerns. That goes against the Ontarians with this. I believe I'm getting too stressed. Give me a second. I get Isabella. Isabella has many complex needs. With the proposal to adopt the amendments, will you give us reassurance that this in no way, shape, or form will negatively affect our property rights that matter to her? I ask that I've lost it here, but I would ask you go online and see the Ontario Ombudsman's report on people like her. They live in jails. They get sent to psychiatric homes because they don't have homes for her. One of the mechanisms by which perhaps we could afford to stay in that home is to have a group home. And a group home is 3 or more people. If I kept 2 more children there, they don't have to have necessarily physical disabilities. It doesn't put their lives at risk any more than mine. You have no right to zone people. It is against the law. These laws are against charter rights. This is a summary of some of the objections we brought to the LPAT. We believe the requests are in violation of the PPS, inconsistent, non-conforming with town official plan, regional municipality of York official plan. The mapping used has not been ground truth and that's not appropriate at this time. Adequate justification for the mapping has not been provided. The mapping lacks clarity, boundaries, does not conform with the official plan of the municipality. It lacks uniformity in which properties are zoned EP in the maps and submitted by the LSRCA. Restrictions on such uses such as group homes violate the Ontario Human Rights Code and are not legitimate. Restrictions requested are frivolous and lack legitimacy. They are without substantiated merit based on science or on the elevation of the floodplain. My property, it's a joke. You can see the backyard is higher than my parking pad, but yet somehow that is flooded. The highest piece of land. Explain to me. Restrictions, the bylaw provision approved by the town are compatible and consistent with the PPS, Planning Act, and Greenbelt Act. LSRCA has not provided any adequate justification for the numerous, anemic, and far-reaching restrictions they are requesting to be placed on properties that they had wished to see labeled EP. We hope, as we said before, that in this process to see clearly defined appropriate boundary lines with this mapping. Based on ground truth and adequate justification, we wish to see upheld allowances for property use in line with rural designations that be in line with the true betterment of the environment. We hope for the sake of Isabella that the laws, that she preserve her rights for this property.
You wrapped up?
Yes. Thank you very much for your patience. And for hearing this. And would you like, I don't know if you want me to remain for any questions or sit back down.
No, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
I am going to make a comment to you, a little different than others in that you have asked us a lot of questions. I've taken note of many of them, and I'm sure my colleagues have taken note of many that we probably have them all. Your questions, this format will not give you answers, so you're still going to walk away thinking that you didn't have any answers. And my suggestion to you is to make an appointment with our staff who are in the office where they have maps and files on your property and other situations that you are here wanting information, and have some time to sit with them, or if you do it in 2 or 3 sections where you may have a half an hour or 40 minutes and another week or two come back with the next piece. I think that's the best way of you getting information. However, our open house, I think, may help as well.
In writing, I received from the town notice that if my mapping issues, I need to deal with them myself by the conservation. That was the answer I received from the town, that they didn't want to discuss that with me.
So I'm not going to debate with you.
No,
but-
I'm just
but
telling you, but that's what I was
but-
told. So, but you're telling me I can come in and speak to them about it.
Absolutely, and you realize that conservation is a separate entity, the same as the province, and we are only one of 3 players within the mapping. But I think that's, I feel your frustration. I understand exactly your emotion of your situation. The best thing is to sit down with staff, make sure you have time. They may not have all the answers at that moment, but at least would have your questions. I know that I've seen them writing as well here, and that would give you an opportunity. You may not get all the answers the first time, but you may get the most important ones dealt with, and then work your way down.
Thank you for providing solutions to me. I appreciate that. I do. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the last deputant that submitted a request this morning was D. Carroll.
Good morning, Mr. Carroll. Good to have you in front of us today.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and staff. I am representing my wife, Simone Carroll, and myself. Today, I have come to ask to council to please hold off, not table any decision to amend our current comprehensive zoning bylaw until such a time that the PPS provincial policy statement has been reviewed by the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and their review is complete. I understand this was a recent announcement that it is to be reviewed with a start date of October 2019. The Conservation Authority Act is currently under review and would ask the same, that you refrain from making any final decisions until such a time that is reviewed has been completed. It is our hope and expectation additionally that our councillors uphold this word from the last council of the whole meeting we attended on July the 16th, 2019, that before making any decisions, they would hold an open house and public education sessions, ones at which town council staff are present, along with inviting the LSRCA to present information and to open the floor to residents to speak for a few minutes each briefly, so as that their voices can be heard, their questions answered, and they be given the opportunity to learn what this is all about. As you, the council, promised your resident, no matter how difficult, you would get it done. As a resident, we expect transparency, honesty, and accountability from our elected officials. We expect you to honor your words and first hold open houses, public education sessions, while holding off any decisions until such time that the public has been properly and duly informed and that they have been given the opportunity to have their questions answered and thought heard. My wife and I were very surprised to get a phone call to learn about the proposed passing of the amendment prior to September 11, 2019. We had marked our calendars September 11 for an open house. We did not expect this. Why are you proposing to pass this bylaw prior to hosting meetings and informing the public? Why are you attempting to pass this so quickly without doing your due diligence? Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, do we have any other deputants at this time?
Those are all your deputants, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Webster, I'm wondering if there's any staff comments that could assist at this time, and I might have a suggestion at some point as well for some comments, but I would ask staff first.
So, Madam Mayor, we've been at this process of this zoning review for about, I guess we're into year 3. And there's been many open houses and opportunities. Admittedly, this whole matter of EP zoning seemed to come up relatively late in the process. And, it became a large issue, one of our biggest meetings we've had in this chamber before last election. And the council at that time chose focusing on the zoning to respect the 1997 bylaw. And I think to walk through that would be helpful. There's 2 reports today. There's a report from planning under that talks about the fuller information request of council. And there's also a memo that talks about the proposed open house. And it might be helpful to move those forward at this time. Since they're under 2 chairmanships, I would ask the clerk, maybe yourself would stay in chair, and then maybe we could walk through some of the issues and hopefully provide some facts and submit further information that might enlighten some of these elements.
Thank you. You're referring to H4 and L1. And at this time, I will ask that we bring H4 forward. Could we do it together? I'm wondering if that would be more helpful. We put the 2 together. So we would bring forward L1 and H4 at this time. Do I have a motion to? Thank you, Councilor Crone. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering, did we make a motion to receive all of the deputations?
Thank you.
I want to just make sure we do that.
Thank you.
Would you
do that?
That's fine.
Thank you. And with thanks for everyone being here today. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So we are going to look at H4 first, or we'll put them together. Okay, go ahead.
If you want, Madam Mayor, I'll just make a couple opening comments. And, sometimes quotes can be taken out of context. So I think one of the points I was trying to make is that to the credit of this council, it's one of the few councils that does meet during the summer months. This is our 2nd meeting. And I know we can be criticized about meeting during the day. Some people do work and have commitments at night as well. And one of the things we've done is put all of our meetings online now. And so one of the things folks can do, and it's even been enhanced today, which you'll see, any member of our public is available to go back and watch the full proceedings of this meeting, and can go right to the minute of what was said and what wasn't said. So I give credit. Second, that I would like to be clear on is this is a litigation matter before the LPAT, which used to be called the Ontario Municipal Board. And I can also assure you on that account that the majority of municipalities would not even be talking about this in public session. This would be an in-camera discussion behind closed doors. Council would come out with some resolution and solution. It would go to the LPAT, and folks would be watching and learning. And, we're doing things differently here. We're trying to be as transparent as possible, and we will continue to be so. So on that note, I might start off, Madam Mayor, by suggesting that the open house and staff, if you recall, were proposing that enacting a new bylaw and dealing with much larger issues like the authority of the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority and their mandate, provincial Greenbelt legislation and changes to Planning Act and official plan, start becoming a very large initiative to wrap up in a settlement of our bylaw or a solution to our bylaw. And the reason we brought this forward in the order was we were hoping that the 11th would be an education session on a new bylaw, but it's clear that if we've been at this for close to 3 years, that to use the 11th as further education and to change the memorandum so that it will indicate that we are not going to be asking council to consider adoption on the 4th might be helpful to start the proceedings off, but I'll leave that for further council discussion. One of the things I'd like to do, if I may, is ask Ray Wurzilla. Ray, he's a member of our CIS department. It's been very helpful about some of the maps and mapping that drive this process. So sometimes to walk through this process, it is very complex, but we'll again try to walk through it in a somewhat logical manner. So Ray, if you could take the helm, we'd appreciate it. So we're going to walk back, and places to grow legislation came out defining East Gwillimbury as a place to grow, but a lot of the discussion has been on legislation and restrictions on property that go well beyond our ability here at East Gwillimbury at this point in time. This is the green belt that is approved by the province close to 15 years ago now. I can tell you there's been little or no changes made to the green belt, and whenever a governing party discusses potentially opening it, it seems to close doors. This council, as a matter of fact, has gone on record many times about adding employment lands that are currently designated as green belt, and to get them out of the green belt. But that restricts our community by about 70%. One of the reasons we think it's important to acknowledge these mapping is to suggest they're invisible isn't being transparent to our community. When folks come in and ask for a building permit, they have to know by property which restrictions are in place by other governing bodies. On top of the Greenbelt, Ray, could we now move to the Oak Ridges Moraine? The Oak Ridges Moraine, again, another provincial document, provides another layer of even higher restriction from the provincial level. In addition to those restrictions, we now move to provincially significant wetlands. And again, a lot of those are also contained in the Greenbelt, but it's another layer of encumbrance that currently is in place by the province of Ontario. We now move to the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority. And for those of us that know, prior to 1954, I don't think there was any mapping, and we had the Hurricane Hazel happen. It was actually before my time, but it hit the community I was raised in, Etobicoke, very hard. And there was sophisticated mapping undertaken at that time that I understand was put in place shortly thereafter. And the floodplain is a very important element of understanding. It's there to protect property, lives, and many other things. In addition to the floodplain, there's a much larger area that the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority, which is their regulated area. And that's the one where we're asking Lake Simcoe to attend on the 11th and provide some information on their mandate and purpose of their mandate and how their mapping is undertaken and completed. You can see with those environmental restrictions from both the province and the authority, the thing to not acknowledge them is not being transparent, in my opinion, to our residents. If you come in and apply for a building permit, our CBO and his staff are mandated to indicate where you are, and if you are in those areas, you're in the LSRCA regulated area, you're directed down to the authority to find out what in fact you have the ability to do or not to do. Maybe now I can move to our zoning bylaw. So in 1997, Town Council at the time approved an EP zone, and I would ask Ray, it was relatively limited, the EP zone, but do you have a rough account of how many acres were included at that time?
I sure do, yeah. It is about 2,600 acres.
So the town of our entire fabric, which I think we're one of the largest municipalities in York Region by land area, there was 2,600 acres. And you can see a lot of that, quite frankly, is the Holland Valley River system. It goes up through the heart of the community, and some other areas where there was greenbelt systems. The next significant date to my mind becomes 2010. And in 2010, we undertook an official plan. And this was a very public process. And this required a high level of studies. And one of the studies undertaken at great cost was called a natural heritage system. And I don't want to confuse heritage with heritage homes. Heritage in this thing is really, you could substitute the word environment. And we retained expert consultants. And at that time, they put in place, and you can see the purplish area is significantly larger than the 1997 EP zone. And I would ask Ray, do we have an estimate of what the purple area is?
Yep, this one is approximately 24,900 acres.
So it's a little larger, Madam Mayor. It's 25,000 acres, thereabouts. And again, this was a public process, but OPs, and I will defend our organization and both the public, OPs happen at what you might call a 30,000 foot level. And it's very high level planning. So it's very difficult for folks to understand. It's an official plan and a purple or an environmental map going to affect me moving forward. And this is the challenge where the challenge became with our current zoning bylaw. If we could move now to what staff were proposing. So based on the planning leadership we had at this time at Development Services, we were advised that the only option the town had to be in compliance with provincial and regional legislation was to bring our EP zone in our zoning bylaw into conformity with the 2010 official plan. And you can see the area that was contemplated. Folks did ask at the time, I didn't see someone come onto my property, so how did they do it? And we've learned that we had staff that were going through aerial maps, taking a look at what properties and what things we're looking at and trying by parcel fabric. And so that is what the proposed town zoning bylaw was to be in 2018 that came before council in the fall of that year. Ray, could you tell me how many acres are in the EP zone at that time?
Yep, at that time, that was about 18,600 acres.
So where we are now is what council did at that time was council reverted to the 1997 zoning, which Ray, you were saying was about 600 acres or?
About 2,600 acres.
2,600 acres, so significantly less. This triggered the appeal from the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority. The Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority was of opinion at the time that this map had to be put in place for us to be in conformity. And since that time, staff, and there was a question, who's driving the bus? Staff have been diligently following council direction to deliver the 1997 EP zoning. And that's what we've been working on with the authority and the region and other partners. And the solution that was brought forward, if I could, Ray, go to the solution now, was the 2,600 acres of EP 1997 zoning, plus 1,000 acres of public lands. So in essence, if I may, how many acres of private land are removed, Ray, from the proposal that was in 2018?
About 15,000 acres is removed.
So I just want to go back to that screen, if I may, Madam Mayor. So this council, through its zoning bylaw, would remove 15,000 acres of environmentally protected land on private land, in essence, because they're already covered by other authorities and jurisdictions. Not that we're saying those things are up for grabs, there's no controls. I think we would be remiss if we turned a blind eye and said, there's no controls. Those other jurisdictions are relevant. There's been questions asked, well, if there are changes to mapping and that, what would happen? Well, I can assure you, if there's changes to authority maps or provincial maps, we will acknowledge those changes very quickly and amend whatever documents need to be. So where we are today is, and I want to make it clear to this group, if you go back right to the 2018, right now, this is still relevant. This is the land area before the LPAT. And I know people are saying, take our time, there's no rush. Right now, our zoning bylaw folks handle permits as if this was in place. They have to put the highest level of potential restrictions. So right now, there's an obstruction on about 15,000 acres of private lands. We were proposing to separate, and I still think from a staff opinion of our leadership team, we're still well advised to keep the zoning bylaw and larger initiatives like Greenbelt legislation, the authority of conservation authorities and their mandate as separate items. I will acknowledge again, though, on behalf of the ratepayers, they haven't had an opportunity. And this is a window for them to use. This is a tool to use your zoning bylaw as a tool to affect potential larger change. And our concern is if it remains unresolved, and you did go to a full LPAT hearing, this entire map is still up for discussion. So we were trying to bring some closure to the zoning bylaw, and we still are, and to try to deal with and advocate for residents. If council so chooses, they could pass resolutions regarding the authority mandate. They can pass resolutions regarding the province's mandate. So on that, what we would potentially propose is, with regard to the workshop or the open house for the 11th, it would be for information gathering, questions, written comments. There would be both presence from the town and the LSRCA and a presentation by both. There would not be a council meeting. So it would be adjudicated over by staff. The one thing we're wondering is, would it be helpful to invite the province if they're considering these changes to policy statements and Greenbelt and other things? Maybe we should put an open invitation out to see if they'll attend and possibly share with us some of the thoughts under consideration. So that would be helpful. And I'll leave the balance of discussion for council. I do want to reference that we received a letter from the LSRCA's lawyer that was directly sent to council late last evening. I think one of the keys there is that the CAO of the authority has been authorized to work on a settlement with us, and it's been moving along in a positive direction. One of the keys is there seems to be a bit of a difference of legal opinion. The authority lawyer seems to feel that if we did resolve it, a withdrawal wouldn't be satisfactory. It would actually still require some form of a hearing. Whereas our town council, town solicitor has indicated he feels if there was a solution that was amenable to parties, that it might not require a full hearing. It could actually avert a hearing and save some taxpayer dollars at this time. So that's pretty much the synopsis. We have our general manager, development services. We have Mr. Horner, and if there are some questions asked, we might have to go in camera if we get into certain litigation matters, but we'll try to deal as much as we can in public forum with this.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. We'll hear from staff at this time. You have more information. Thank you. I think that was very helpful.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not really any additional information, but just I think our CAO touched on all the matters. I just really wanted to clarify, notwithstanding council's direction on the recommendations by staff here that may change, the intent of this report was, again, to follow the previous council direction to identify additional information with respect to the other land use controls that exist at the provincial level and regional level and why they're there. I think Mr. Webster spoke to that. And the other thing was to bring forward for council's considerations the proposed resolution that we do have with that's been agreed to in principle between the Conservation Authority staff and town staff with respect to affecting the change. And primarily, it is bringing the zoning bylaw back to the 1997 schedule of EP and rural lands. As you've seen up on the screen, the proposal and the schedules that are attached to this report reflect all the private property that was once zoned, or last year EP, it was proposed EP, go back to a rural zone. And that would enable property owners, and we've heard from a number, not only folks that are here in the chambers, that want to proceed with minor development applications or building permits. And unfortunately, due to the technicality of the LPAT appeal, staff need to apply the more restrictive zone, which is the EP that's under appeal now, and building permits can't be issued. So bringing the zoning bylaw back to the rural 1997 rural zones for all those properties would provide that certainty for property owners if they do wanted to proceed with development or minor building permit applications. With respect to the additional verbiage in the proposed in the bylaw, again, it is just enhanced verbiage that really already existed in the current bylaw that makes reference to any zoning bylaw needs to be read in its entirety, as well as property owners need to be aware of other provincial and regional conservation authority regulation that exists. The floodplain mapping, or the what we refer to as the hazard land regulation limit of the conservation authority, that is really not affecting the zoning on a parcel basis. That schedule already existed in our zoning bylaw. It's true, and it is frustrating to property owners that the conservation authority, I mean, it's their mandate to protect the watershed, and that those floodplain and regulation limits do occasionally change. Some areas get reduced, some get a little larger, but we do refer any residents or property owners who come in to discuss what they can do on their property. We deal with our zoning bylaw, but do make reference to the conservation authority regulation limit. And if they are within that area, we do suggest they have a discussion with the authority before they come back to discuss their future changes. Again, there may be other questions, Madam Mayor, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Roy de Clemente.
Not so much a question, just as a bit of a statement. I think for me, when I saw our agenda, I was a little surprised that this was back to us, because I had been under the impression that we were going to be dealing with after the September 11th meeting. And then I went and looked at our minutes, and the motion was very clear to staff that they needed to bring us a report on this date, and that's what they've done. So from that perspective, I think that's where some of the crossed wires happened, was staff did what we told them to do, and they brought this report to us. I'm not at this point in a position to be ratifying or making any decisions. I still want to wait until the September 11th meeting. And so what I would like to propose is that we receive that report for information, and that we refer it to our council meeting on I think it's the 17th of September, which is a 7 p.m. meeting, which would be in the evening. So if people needed to be here after work, they could be. And that it could be amended with any additional information that emerges at that open house. So I think that may be the best approach. There's a lot of information that's floating out there, and a lot of misinformation, and people need to have an opportunity to speak directly with staff about their property, and understand that EP zone is not the only regulatory piece that influences what they can do with their property, and that in many ways we are simply another layer in this process for them, but that there are other bodies that have a place in this process as well. Thank you.
I certainly agree with that. I all too went back, and it seems to make sense that whether we deal with it September 17th or we deal with it the 1st of October, the input that we will receive from the public will be very important for all of us for our decisions. And also it gives the public, as I had indicated to one deputant, an opportunity to come in and sit down on a one-to-one. In the meantime, I had written down also to invite the province. I think it's important that they be a player. Their lands are differently regulated than ours, as is the Conservation Authority, and to have both parties at the open house, I think would simply add more understanding to our public. There's layers and layers of regulations that as a town council we have no jurisdiction over. However, if we can get them there and have them share their policies and procedures with our public, then I think everybody has a better understanding before we move forward. So I'm not stuck on the 17th of September. It could be later than that. In fact, we have some work. I know that some people are anxious that it's put together and behind us. However, it's been going on so long now, a few extra weeks or a few extra meetings, I don't think is going to make a difference one way or the other than our residents will have a better understanding and have more information before we make those decisions, and we will understand from them what they need as well. Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Once again, you and Councillor Roy DeClemente have beat me to the punch. I too would support. I think there was some miscommunication, misunderstanding. That we indeed need to vote on this after the public has had another meeting on this. I think there is a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of misunderstanding, and we need to nail that down so that everyone is working with the same information or as much of it as we can. And to your point, Madam Mayor, there are pieces of legislation that we have no control over. The Greenbelt, Oak Ridges Moraine. It frustrates us too when we'd like to have development lands, employment lands, as our CEO has mentioned. It is frustrating for us, so we share that. I do have some comments though. I think, you know, when this all started, I wasn't on council. I was sitting in the crowd there, very concerned about where this legislation would go as well, this policy. I myself and my family own land, and we're concerned. I think we've done the right thing. We're setting, for all intents and purposes, we're setting the clock back to 1997. So, Mr. Ramuno, could you tell me, is there any, by wrapping this up and tidying up what we're trying to get done here, which was a reaction to that meeting last year where we were going to put in the new EP zones, by going back to the 1997 zones, has anyone lost any freedoms or rights by doing that they don't currently enjoy before this EP zone was suggested?
So you missed Councillor Crone. No, this will be in keeping with Council's May 2018 decision to revert back to the rural zoning for those properties, those 15,000 acres that were covered previously by the EP. No, they would have the rural zone and they would have the permission under the rural zone.
So we're not losing anything. We're not gaining anything by going back to the 97. The 97 zone. So I think we have, when I'm listening to the folks, the deputants and residents that I've been talking to, we have some common ground. We don't want the new EP zone that was suggested last year, and we want the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority to drop their appeal. So we're on the same side. We want to achieve that, and I think I would suggest though that if we are to delay this, to keep delaying it beyond waiting for the province to have their policy statement, and I would caution you that a policy statement is not legislation. It is merely a review of where things are at. It is not an intention of where they want to go with legislation. So I think we are dragging the puck with this if we delay it too long. I've heard of residents tell me about real estate deals that have blown apart trying to sell their land because we have to conform with the new EP zone. That's wrong. That's infringing on property owners' rights. That concerns me, that we are frustrating local economics. If we want to stand up for landowners' rights, we need to get rid of this EP zone, put it to bed. I heard secondary concerns around what our official plan is and issues around the Greenbelt, the Oak Ridges Moraine, and that is a valid concern and that deserves a fulsome discussion. But I think we need to separate that from the issue that we have today with wrapping up this appeal. Because if we let it drag on, as was suggested earlier, we could be taken back to the LPAT and we may have a decision forced on us that we do not like, and that everyone would be set back considerably. So I just caution, I think we need to wrap up this part if we want to have another discussion and fulsome debate about what we're doing with our zoning and our official plan. That's a different topic, and we need to have that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? So I have L1 in front of me here, and I have made a note, Mr. Clerk, regarding the open house, and that the passing of our bylaw will not happen until at least after that date and leave it somewhat fluid. However, not indefinitely. So we have a September 17th, and we have an October 1st council meeting, but perhaps we can hone in on the agenda topics that are already committed for those dates and try to find one that might be a little bit lighter in that regard. I also would ask that within our motion, I'll leave that one for now. And so do I have a mover for this motion? Mark has his finger up.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, you may wish to refer L1 memo back to staff. The only reason I say that is it references a date, September 4th, for potential council adoption. And I think I'm hearing from committee that that's not the case. So I would recommend referring that memo back to be updated accordingly, and then it can be brought back to reflect the conversation of today.
Thank you.
Just a
Appreciate
suggestion.
that. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Crone. Any questions on that motion? Go ahead.
While we're dealing with that memo on the open house, I think I heard some discussion about wanting to invite the province to attend as well. And so I may suggest that we include in that motion that an invitation be extended to that party to attend if they're available.
I'm wondering if we can leave that until H4.
Fair enough.
That has been given to us from our Director of Communication with some outline of the evening's events, and tuck it in with that one.
Well, I thought that was the one that we were looking at.
No, I'm dealing with L1.
So L1, okay. Then if we're dealing with L1, then I guess there was a bit of confusion. I thought Mr. Valchich was referring to the memo from communications, but if we're dealing with Mr. Ramuno's report, then I'd like to see that I don't want to refer it necessarily back to staff, but I want to refer it to a future meeting. And I had suggested the 17th because that was an evening meeting. October 1st is the meeting after, is a 3 p.m. meeting. If you push it any further, you're going to the Wednesday after Thanksgiving, which is a 7 p.m. meeting, but people are going away for Thanksgiving. So that was really the timing. Was I was trying to be mindful of people's schedule. Yes, it is somewhat rushed after the September 11th meeting, but in the interest of as Councillor Crone said, real estate deals and people having some certainty in their transactions and in their land, in their acquisition or disposition of land, then it may be appropriate to give people some certainty. So that's where I was going with that. Thank you.
Fine. Mr. Lamanna.
Just to assist council, certainly we're hearing the discussion, and we're dealing with both items H4 and L1 together and concurrently. I believe we have a solution that could meet all, and we'll bring that up on the screen for you. I think what I'm hearing from Councillor Roddy Clement is with regards to L1, the report and any passing of a bylaw be referred back to staff and brought back September 17th at a 7 p.m. time frame. For consideration to be amended with any additional information that may emerge from the open house on September 11th. We can also at the same time move for receipt for information H4, which is the memorandum. And then lastly, include direction to staff to extend invitations to the province. And I would probably put in Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority in there again, even though we've probably already done so, but it doesn't hurt to include it in this motion as well. So we can put that up on the screen for you for council's consideration.
So Councillor Crone has moved L1, and Councillor Roy DiClemente has moved H4, correct? Yes.
I believe the memo could be modified by council just to be accurate. It's essentially what we're doing is it would be removing the adoption of the bylaw on September 4th, and that would be the open house would be to discuss the proposed bylaw. The Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority and the provincial representative be invited to discuss policy statements and other matters of their interest. I think that, given the timing right now, might be received for information as amended. That would work for everybody.
Councillor Roy DiClemente?
I'm also thinking of, we may want to put a clause in that we ratify later today so that staff have the authority to extend those invitations and that people have some certainty for their calendars. I know it's shocking that I'm saying that we ratify same day, but.
Thank you. Always reasons why. Okay, and you are moving that? Okay. Okay. And we can do it all as one?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think you can deal it all as one motion, and certainly the intent is quite clear.
Okay. So item H4, all those in favor? It's carried. Item L1, moved by Councillor Crone. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us this morning. I know it's been a long morning. I suspect we're going to be here for a long day because we have people over here that are on the agenda for later today as well. So thank you very much for the time that you've put into to come to give us your input, and we appreciate it very much as residents. We know you care. Thank you. I'm wondering if we need a 10-minute stretch right now, and then those that would like to leave do so, and then we'll come back at 12 o'clock and see how quickly we can get through a portion that we have some guests in the audience to attend to. Back to order here, and looking at the agenda, our next item is item F, that's Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services with Councillor Crothers in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have two reports before us today, both of them very good news story. The first one is a winter maintenance operations update. General Manager Molinari, do you want to take us through this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief, but this is a good news story. This is a typical report that we bring every year, and I just wanted to point out some of the good work that our operations staff have done this year. Even though we had more winter events, we actually used less salt than we have in previous years. So I just like to thank Jeff Meggett, Murray Kellington, and Grant Stevenson for their real great work last year and looking at their salt application rates and kind of adjusting them on the fly, depending on conditions that are out there. I did a great job of doing that. So this report is there's lots of information in it and sets out some of our goals for next winter season and keeping the theme of continuous improvement.
Thank you very much. This is here for receipt. Can I have someone move receipt? Councillor Persichini. Is there any questions or comments from members of committee? Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Just a very quick comment. I remember years ago the major discussion about how much oversalting we were doing. So this comes with delight to me that we've moved mountains, literally moved mountains. And I'm just wondering if staff could please pass our thanks on to those that are on the roads every day, that they really do make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roy DiClemente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of thoughts. One was I noted in the report that our sort of looking forward to the 2020 budget process and that we will need to amend the budget sort of commensurate with lane kilometers added. I wondered whether, since and obviously the lion's share of these expenses are labor costs, but with the significant reduction in materials, I'm wondering if we've also realized not just an environmental impact, but also a cost savings. And I wonder if staffs might be able to respond to that.
Mr. Molinari.
Through you, Madam Chair. I guess it's more about cost avoidance. So we had a lot more, about a 25% increase in the number of events. So we were out more times than we were in previous years. So even though we've reduced the amount of salt we use each time we go out, as an aggregate, we've used about the same amount of salt overall as in previous years, just because we've had more winter events to clear.
Go ahead.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I just also wanted to comment, and I'm again looking forward to the 2020 capital budget. Through last season, there was a few residents in the Sharon area who had raised the issue of some freeze-thaw cycles creating ice buildup, which required manual work from our staff to try and clear it to make it safe under the minimum maintenance standards. And I know staff had acknowledged that and had proposed a couple of options that may require a capital project. I just wanted to confirm or remind folks that that was still going to be the case. Through you, Madam Chair, to staff.
Mr. Molinari.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, that's correct. Our staff, the first part of the project was just doing some regular re on the roadways and curbs and sidewalks in some of those areas. So that work's been done on some of the areas in question. And our operations team will be going out this fall and completing some additional boulevard works to lower some of the boulevards and provide some lower areas for the sidewalks to drain into and hopefully alleviate some of those ponding areas. And it's really going to be a bit of an iterative process. So we'll monitor how those improvements go this winter. And if additional measures are required beyond what our operations crew does this year, then we'll look at a capital project potentially to do some more extensive works in future years.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, all in favor of receipt? Carried. The second report is on the Overholt Pit. It's a site alteration update. General Manager Molinari.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This report's really just to provide council with a bit of a synopsis of the last public information center we had with respect to this pit. We've tried to summarize some of the main themes that came out of that, and really we have the applicant and Rice Group here today to listen to any further comments, and whatever comments come out will be incorporated into the overall plan and returning to council with an updated plan that has all of the feedback incorporated into it, and the fill management plan for council's consideration of a permit.
Thank you. This is here for receipt. Can I have someone move that? Councillor Crone, is there any questions or comments from members of committee? Councillor Roy DiClemente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to, and this can be for future reports to us, I would like a little bit of information about the proposed hours of operation and how those will be enforced. I know that sometimes we get questions about trucks starting up earlier and so on. And the other question I had was, I noticed it was commented on slightly in the report, but I'd like to have a little bit more information about the intersection of Harold Road and McCowan. I know that there's discussion about what's happening down at Davis, but the sight lines, particularly for east-west traffic on Harold, trying to cross McCowan, there's a couple of blind hills in that area, and I'd like a little bit of attention paid there as well, just to make sure that we're not introducing an additional safety concern. Thank you.
Mr. Molinari.
Through you, Madam Chair. The hours of operation will be 7 to 5. That's what's proposed, Monday to Friday. And on the weekends, there would be maintenance on site. So the fill wouldn't be delivered, but there would be operational maintenance to the vehicles, et cetera, that would be able to go from, I believe it's 7 to 7. And with regards to the traffic along Harold Road and McCowan, that we will have the consultants look at through their traffic management plan and assess if there, if the sightline issues, and make sure that proper turn lanes have been put in areas where they need to be put in, etc.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor of receipt? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Turning the chair back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. At this point, we're at Community Parks, Recreation, and Culture with Councillor Persicini in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two items here. First one is Community Park, Recreation, and Culture, CPR C2019-23, tender award of contract, T1912, construction of Queensville Park redevelopment. You have it in front of you, page 53 to 59. General Manager Carmazon, do you have any comments on this?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. This particular project is a high priority project as identified in the Health and Active Living Master Plan, our Parks and Rec Master Plan. This project is development charge and community capital contribution eligible with absolutely no cost to the tax base. And we have secured that the funding in those accounts to identify these types of projects. These projects were estimated back in 17 with 2018 budget approval. There is a variance that we've noted due to market conditions, and as well, we have identified with this particular project some challenging site conditions, in particular underneath the sub-base or soils under supporting structures for the tennis courts as well. So that is just a little bit of background on the variance to budget, the estimated budget. And I should also note that with any approval of a contingency does not necessarily mean the project will exhaust a contingency. It's simply a safeguard further to ensure that we are able to address any unforeseen site conditions.
Thank you, General Manager. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Roy DiClemente. Any questions for the committees? If there's no question, I call a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, now I have another one here. Community Park, Recs, and Culture, CPR C2019-24, tender award for the contract T-19-10, construction of Mount Albert Community Center Park redevelopment, Phase 1. General Manager, do you have any comments on this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. Yes, again, this is another high priority project as well, identified in the Health and Active Living Master Plan. This project also has been identified as a key project to promote the downtown revitalization within Mount Albert, to continue on with some of the recent works that were performed at Center and Main and at the public parking lot along Main Street. These projects, again, were estimated in 17 with budget approval in 18, and similar comments to Queensville with regards to variance due to market conditions, and as well as some challenges with some subsoils in this particular park as well, in particular with higher water table and some drainage that we're working through. Again, contingency does not necessarily mean we will require the contingency, but we do carry that to address any unforeseen conditions. Be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, General Manager Comerson. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Crone. Moved by Councillor Crone. Any question from members of committees? Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Comerson. Appreciate the investment that this is going to have in the community, and I think Mount Albert looks forward to the enhanced park, revitalization that will bring to downtown. I have a couple of questions. First, and I always encourage this, so I'm going to sound like a broken record. Anytime we can source supplies for these constructions through local vendors, it's always good for folks of East Gwillimbury to get some spin-off economic effect from this. Secondly, I've heard some questions from folks, residents, by enhancing this park, is it going to have an impact on Sports Day? And will Sports Day still be able to use the park going forward? I've just heard that a number of times. I just thought it would be good to share that publicly.
General Manager Comerson.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just in regards to local vendors, we obviously support local vendors in any way possible. We are bound by the procurement bylaw, so we do have to tender and an award to the lowest compliant bidder. Obviously, as far as enhancements to the park, absolutely. Staff have, through the public consultation process, have met with the organizers of Sports Day, have taken a look at the park layout, and in an effort to support Sports Day, as well as the programs at Mount Albert Community Center and the adjacent school property as well, with partnership programming and programming that the Community Parks Rec and Culture Department also facilitates. And lastly, placemaking with regards to 3 public meetings with the residents to ensure that we've addressed a park that meets the public's needs as well.
Thank you very much. And member, okay, Councillor Crothers.
Thank you. My concern is the increased budget for both of these projects. When combined, it's quite significant. And I just wanted to get idea from staff as to how that will affect our reserves. It's coming from DCs, I see. If I can just get an idea of the financial position to be able to approve, I think it's about $500,000. These 2 projects combined, the increase cost of these. Thank you.
General Manager or Mr. Valchek, which will be?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. So that will be covered. We actually have a DC reserve schedule as part of today's agenda as well, and it will be fully covered within those component categories.
Okay, thank you.
Any members of the committee? Any other questions? When I call a vote? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. General Manager, do you have any other comments or anything that you want to mention before our area is completed?
Through Mr. Chair, nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Back to the Mayor.
Thank you very much. We are on item H, Corporate Services, with Councillor Morton in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our first item on the under Corporate Services and Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services report is Strategic Assessment Management Policy. Mr. Velchich, you want to comment on this first?
Madam Chair, through you, just very briefly, our CIAS department has taken a lead role and certainly has our appreciation to sort of start to look at assets throughout the organization and what type of plans and protocols need to be in place. Given that it's a corporate-wide type initiative, it's been positioned under corporate services. We do have a policy in place that speaks to the accounting for our tangible capital assets. That's been in place for the last several years. This is really an evolution of that in accordance with the provincial requirements, and it really is a stage setter for how we manage, maintain, renew, and replace our assets. Today's policy that you're looking at is very high level. Really, the real discussion around this will come out in the next couple of years as the detailed plans are put forward to you, which will include not only those plans for managing, maintaining, renewing, and replacing our assets, but very importantly, what type of funding requirements and plans need to be in place to do that. So this is really setting the stage and I think puts us in good shape to move forward.
Questions from council members? No? I have one comment that I'd like to make, and Mr. Velchich and I had a little problem. We should have issued large, I guess, some sort of, that we could see these. We can't really see them. We needed a some sort of a larger, well, not so, even if we had a little, you know, something that we could just read a little bit easier, because I'm sure that there are many things in here that there is questions about. One of them I have is on I guess it's on my stuff, it's page 76. It has to do with the roles and responsibilities under number 6. I mean, Mr. Velchich, it says about we will be getting, council will be getting policies, copies of policies. And I'm just wondering if we'll be receiving those policies more than 2 days prior to the approval date.
Yes.
Good answer. Are there any further questions or concerns to do with this one issue? Oh, okay. So approved by Councillor Persicini. All in favor of that motion? Motion's carried. Move on to the next one. The mayor got me confused with us changing orders here. Number 2 is it's on Statement of Development Charge Reserve Funds for 2018. Mr. Velchich?
Madam Chair, you've recently received sort of high-level information through the year-end audit as to the status of the development charge reserve funds. This report is before you today in accordance with the Development Charges Act. It's a requirement and ensures that we're reporting to a greater level of detail on the status of those reserves. And it's basically there for your information.
Questions by member of committee?
And just to confirm, this includes the $500,000 we just approved?
Mr. Valchich?
Madam Chair, through you, the report that you're looking at here would be for 2018 year end, and so the numbers that you'd be referring to would be reflected in the 2019 statement. You will see them, but they would be reflected in the next statement.
Thank you.
Can I have a mover for this? Councillor Foster, all in favor? Motion's carried. Okay. The next report is on Bill 108, proposed regulations. Mr. Valcher?
Madam Chair, this is for your information, and we're also looking for committee and council support. As we mentioned at the last meeting, there is some technical discussions taking place with regards to the draft regulations. Staff have taken the opportunity to meet with representatives of development services and finance throughout the 9 municipalities in York Region. There's been some collective meetings to sort of share thoughts and perspectives and to gain insights in terms of the input required. And as a result of that, our staff have put together the input that we plan to provide. This input is required back by a week from tomorrow, and so we're simply providing it to you so you're aware of the issues and what we plan to provide as input. Thank you.
Questions from council members? I do have a concern, Mr. Valchich, and it's under the financial implications. Mayor Haxton and I were part of a committee or part of a council a number of years ago that actually came out with growth pays for growth. And the more that I'm seeing and the cost of things coming in, I really don't feel comfortable that growth is actually paying for growth. And I noticed under here that it does say that growth has not been fully paying for growth despite the intentions of the legislation. And the scope of DC should be increased as opposed to limited. Can I have your comments on that?
Madam Chair, certainly staff are providing a perspective in response to the provincial review to indicate that it is very important that development charges pay for the full cost of growth-related infrastructure, and we continue to maintain that position. We think it's a really critical funding mechanism for municipalities, particularly those that are in growth-related cycles. This is a really critical source of funding to enable us to put the infrastructure in place that's needed to support the new growth.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I have a mover on this, please? Councillor, oh yes, Brothers first. Okay, all in favor of that? Motion's carried. And item number 4, we have already approved, right? Okay, so are there anything else? Any more questions for Mr. Valchich? Councillor Roy DiClemente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this will probably crack the foundations of this building, but I'm wondering whether we need to ratify the Bill 108 regulations feedback today because the deadline is in a week's time. So I'm suggesting that we twice in one day, I know.
Are you moving that?
I will move it. That's
Councillor Roy
fine. Yes, I'll
DiClemente?
move it. That's fine. It's, I mean,
okay, all in favor though?
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. You had a comment?
Through you, Madam Chair, certainly I was going to bring that up under other business. On today's agenda, there's only realistically 4 items that are not requesting ratification today, and I was going to suggest that at the end of the meeting, much like we did in July, if we wanted to ratify all recommendations later today, this afternoon, then that would be appropriate at that time. Thank you.
Okay. You're okay with that, Councillor Roy DiClemente? All right. Okay, hearing nothing further, I turn the chair back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're under item I, and that's legal and council support with Councillor Foster. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one item today, item I1. That's legal and council support services, 2019-11, regarding a lease amending and extension agreement with Rogers Communications. Mr. Horner, any comments?
Just briefly to say, council's probably familiar with the little storage shed that we have out in the backyard there, and it's one that we share with Rogers Communications. They keep some equipment in it, and we're just asking for your permission to renew this lease for another 5 years. And we've got a 10% uptick in rent each year, just because it is becoming perhaps a little bit awkward as we look to repurposing the site. But if we do, or the day comes that we do want to repurpose the site, we can terminate that lease on a year's notice. So I don't think there's any concern on the part.
Thank you. Can I have a mover? Councillor Morton. Any questions from committee? Seeing none, can we have a vote? All in favor? And that is carried. I believe we have one more thing. Mr. Horner, any further information?
Nothing further. Happy to take any questions. Did I miss something?
Fern?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if we can indulge council for about 30 seconds, 45 seconds, like to showcase the new live streaming that we have live today. Yeah, thank you very much for your indulgence on this. So if you recall, we had the live streaming project set up under last year's budget. We put the one camera, and then there was some identification from residents that some upgrades and some requests would be nice. So with minimal dollars, $15,000 I think is a small budget for this kind of improvement. We've installed 2 cameras. So the view, if we can show the standard view, Jabira. Oh, sorry, this is a video that we're playing. I'll keep in touch here. So this is the screen that folks will see. This is a video that we did yesterday as we were testing. So you're going to have a screen-on-screen display. So as the presenter, you're at the podium. If they have a presentation that is provided on the agenda or at the meeting, then they'll be able to, viewers will see the presentation at the same time. The banner at the top, that's sort of just a custom template at this point. Certainly our communication staff are going to put their professional touches on that when they have some time. One thing I like to advise, this blank space here, we will take advantage of and utilize for advertising. And not talking commercial advertising, but we're talking internal advertising. So if we want to display information about upcoming events like the community open house in October, or the TOT, or elections, or anything, e-newsletters, that will be displayed here. And communications will assist us with that. And it can change each meeting. So moving forward, so as you're scrolling through the agenda, when we get to a closed session, then we have the opportunity to be moving to a fixed screen that will identify that council will be resuming shortly. One important aspect about all of the screens, we have inputted a small time clock on the bottom right-hand corner that identifies the countdown, the actual live hour. So people don't think their screen is frozen or otherwise. And I think that is about it. I'd like to thank staff, certainly IT and my staff, Tara and Jabira, have been critical on this installment. And I think for minimal dollars, I think it's a great improvement and should function just nicely for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamont. Are there any questions?
Regarding the camera there, when it goes to freeze frame, not that I like to look at myself, but it would be nice to have counselors who is free frame of all the councilors' pictures on the bottom. I don't know, just freeze frame the councilor. This, we'll be back shortly or something. Hey, just a thought.
Mayor Haxton?
Thank you. I think it looks terrific. We've come a long way in a very short period of time. I'm wondering that it appears to me sitting here, and maybe it looks different at another seat. This smaller screen has much better quality than this one here, and I'm just wondering, is it where I'm sitting or is it actual?
Through you, Mr. Chair, certainly that is. You're looking at the TV screen, which is high resolution and 4K. That's just a regular projector. Now, IT does have in their budget this year, and will be installing new projectors, which are high definition, which will provide a crisper look on the back end. Other improvements that will happen over time that in this chamber, certainly lighting. We move to LED lighting will improve the crispness and quality, and certainly the bulkhead above council members' heads here provides a little bit of a shadowing. So certainly those are larger capital projects that will happen over time and in due course.
Thank you. It's such an improvement. I'm hearing out in the community, I'm sure everyone else is, that we've now moved forward in a big way. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, thank you, Mr. Lamanna. I will turn the chair back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. And with myself in the chair at this time, we have no reports under administration. Are there any questions or information regarding admin at this time? Seeing none, we will move to item K, and that's Emergency and Community Safety Services with Councillor Roy DeClemente, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no prepared items on our agenda. Chief Dawson, anything to bring forward at this time?
With thanks, nothing further.
Members of committee, anything to raise under this area? Seeing none, I'll turn the chair back to you.
Thank you very much. We're under item L, Development Services with Councillor Cronin, the Chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Seeing as we have already dealt with the first item, I'll go on to the second. Development Services Planning Branch Report, Planning Application Status List. Mr. Romano, do you have any comments you'd like to share with us at this time?
Certainly, Chair Crone. So this is simply an information report for council. I think this is something new. It's a useful tool for staff, council, as well as the public. It's really just again, a status list of all the active planning applications that are currently before town that have formally been submitted. And I think we're suggesting that we'll provide an updates to council biannually, but depending on obviously the amount of applications we do get in and size of agendas, we may move to a quarterly reporting, just so council's aware of new applications. And again, this will be a live sort of status list. We'll continue to add new applications, and we'll update the status of existing applications to inform council that they've proceeded to a next step or they've been completed before they're removed from the list. So I think this will be a useful tool. It'll also be on our town's website.
Great, thank you, Mr. Romano. Can I have a motion for this? Councillor Morton? Okay, are there any questions? Councillor Carruthers?
Thank you. This is a fantastic tool. I really liked going through this and having it all in one place so that when we get questions, we know what's what. I just had one question about the color coding. Number 21, which is in Ward 2, second concession just north of Doan, is listed as non-residential, but the description seems to be residential. I'm just wondering if that's an oversight or if I'm missing something. Number 21.
Through you, Mr. Chair, 21 is correct. That is a residential. I'm just trying to look at the map. Is it map?
It's mapped in yellow.
Yellow.
So Ward 2.
Yeah. So we'll certainly make that correction moving
Okay.
forward then. Thank you for that.
Thanks.
And again, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Lawrence and the rest of the staff who had to put together a lot of work in pulling old files to put the mapping together as well. So it's well done. Thank you.
Any other questions, Councillor Morton?
Not so much a question as just a comment. Congratulations to staff. And it was actually nice having this over the weekend because I was able to answer a couple of questions already. So even though we hadn't approved it yet, but it certainly helped. And I think it's going to be wonderful as we move forward. It makes things much easier for council. So thank you to you and your staff.
I would second that motion. Any other questions? Mr. Lamano?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to advise the mover that it should be received as amended.
All right. As amended, no problem. Can we have a vote? All in favor? Okay, none opposed. Motion is carried. On to the next one, Development Services Planning Branch Report, removal of the hold symbol by Minto Communities. Mr. Ramona, would you like to update us a little more on that?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So this is simply a next phase of the Minto plan and subdivision that was approved a number of years ago. They've just realized through the regional servicing incentive program additional allocation that's been confirmed by the region, and so the report is a request to approve the holding provision, to remove the holding provision from that phase to allow the execution of an agreement and again construction of homes for those 27 units which they now have servicing allocation for.
Can I have a mover for this? Councillor Foster? Okay, are there any questions? Mayor Hexon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Muno, does this complete that subdivision at this point?
Madam Chair, no, they still have some remaining phases, and I think a couple hundred, if I'm not mistaken, if not more. Then again, it may even be on the status list. No, but it won't be complete.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, can I have a vote? All in favor? None opposed? Motion is carried. Last item on our agenda for Development Services is the Planning Branch Report request for removal from the Register of Cultural Heritage Properties, 5020 Holborn Road. Mr. Ramuno, can you enlighten us?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So again, this is a property on Holborn Road. Unfortunately, there are a number of outbuildings and the former sort of farmstead that are in disrepair, and this proceeded to the Heritage Advisory Committee with the request to remove the property from our heritage list. We've also included the recommendation number 3 for council's consideration with respect to, if council so chooses to ratify this decision today, simply because of there was an order against the property with respect to the dwellings being in disrepair and unsafe condition, and it went to the appeals property standards appeal branch, and an extension was provided to August the 13th, but that's for council's consideration as well.
Thank you very much. Can I have a mover for this? Councillor Foster? Are there any questions? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor? None opposed? Motion is carried. Mr. Ramuno, do you have any other comments for committee at this time?
No, nothing further. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Ramuno at this time? Seeing none, I pass the chair back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're under item M, and that is other business, and we have workshop topics. Would that include the one that is we're going to meet on the 11th of September?
I believe we're calling the 11th a open house. So that one's going to be an open house. But I think coming down I'll ask the clerk for September. So it'd be October. I think we had asset management. Is that one that we had?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the schedule for October 8th, currently we have the transportation ATTMP update, the water wastewater master plan update, and then we also have invited guests from Walkerton Clean Water Center, drinking water system, and the regulatory obligations to council. And those are all scheduled for October 8th currently.
Okay. Not seeing any questions. Ten to 12? Okay, thank you. And are there any other topics at this time?
Just to remind you, Madam Chair, that suggestion to pass a motion to have all resolutions from CWC today ratified at council later this afternoon.
Have a mover, please. Councillor Morton. All those in favor? That's carried. With that, we would adjourn at 12:44, moved by Councillor Crone. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you.